now, the program, as you saw in the invitation, will include a couple of things. We only want to take 15 minutes of your time to give you a couple of tips about the presentation you're going to give at the Sci conference. So the first tip we would like to give you is the importance of time management. As the Sci conference will be on a very high content level. We'll have like so many presentations, so many presenters. Obviously, time is very important for us to make sure that we give everyone who will attend all the time in the world to be able to share their presentations. This is why it's so important to make sure that you've timed your story very well to the amount of time that has been given to you. This means that the best thing you can do is to rehearse it a couple of times, like the TED Talks. I hope you've seen some of these TED Talks, and otherwise I will make some links available. Because at TEDx, it's almost like a show, so tight, and so these people are very trained to keep it up in a short moment of time. Obviously, we understand that you could talk for hours about the subject and the research that you've done. But unfortunately, the TED conference is not just about one topic, about one piece of research. So this is why we're going to have to ask you to keep time. And this is why it's necessary to make sure that you rehearse your talk, to make sure that you know what it is that you want to say and you're not going to miss out because time is running out. So during the presentation, we would advise you not to take too many questions. So that because you've timed your story, take the time to share your presentation just as it is. And we've built in some moments to have a Q&A with the audience because people will have questions later on. So our suggestion would be to keep the audience engaged. So how to do this? Well, when you're rehearsing your story, one thing you could do is to already add in a couple of crowd engagers along your story. This could be a simple thing, like just asking for some feedback. So what I've just told, who recognizes this? And it would be as easy for people to just raise their hand. Please be noticed that a lot of people are uncomfortable raising their hand in a crowd. So this is why a reversed question usually works better. So if there is something you would like people to say yes to, it's much easier to just ask for the people who don't agree to raise their hand, because raising their hand will be more inconvenient than not to. Obviously, it could also resolve in a funny situation, but hopefully people will feel that you are engaging with them. So a quick fix to many stories to keep people involved. People quite often already see what you're going to. They already get your point. They already know where you want to go with your conclusion. To make sure that people stay on the tips of their chairs and stay involved very much, I could give you a tip that maybe sounds crazy in line with what I just said. But my tip would be literally start with the end of your presentation. So by telling people what it is that you want to work to, they'll be more curious about how you're getting there. So just by starting your presentation with, oh, by the end of this presentation, I've given you the answers on these 3 major questions. Or by the end of this presentation, you will know why it's so important to, and fill in. So this is pretty much like how talk shows work and television works. You know, the irritating bits of show, or the parts of a show they tell you just before the break. These are all meant to make sure that people stay engaged, stay hooked on, and want to see more. So I would definitely encourage you to start your presentation by telling people what it is actually that you're asking their attention for. So this means don't put all your conclusions, all your um, major research points in the end of your presentation, um, but already up front, share some more about what it is that you're going to tell the people and what it is that you're going to share with them. So if you do this and you've thought about how many time you need, then obviously it's important to think about how you're going to present your research effectively. um, I'm pretty sure that for you, everything is relevant. Everything has so much relevance to show, and a lot of the information is needed to make sure that you give a good quality presentation. But for the people in the room, not everything has context. So, what I would like you to think about is what do they need in information to understand what you're telling, and maybe it's a lot less than you want to show to them. So try not to put all your data, all your text on the slides. Our experience is for people it's very hard to take in large amounts of text, and you putting text on the screen also has another bad effect. People will start to read it. So as you're talking, as you're giving your presentation, people's eyes will only be focusing on taking in the huge amount of text on the screen. The better presentations you will see in your life and that inspire you are probably the presentations that don't contain numbers at all. These would be the presentations that inspire you by the way that the story is being brought to you. These are the presentations that touch you because it has a very nice example that you can relate to. So, as an example, um, I would always try to put in a personal thing. A personal thing could be just about anywhere, but just don't make it too um, general. As long as you try, no matter how um, big and um, super high over your research is, you could always try to make it to relate it to the people in the room. So if you're the inventor or the researcher of a high scale, high tech, smart city concept for safety in traffic, then my tip would definitely be that somewhere in your story you try to make the people see themselves just in the car or on a road bike in the situation that your system is gonna be involving. So I'll just resume because I've seen that during this broadcast we've been getting some more and more new viewers. So just to say thank you all for watching. We got some tips, and I'm just welcoming you. We're just resuming and getting into some tips that make sure that your presentation is even going to be better than you already can do it. So just to make sure for the new viewers that my name is Lars. I will be moderating the conference, and I just gave some tips, and I'll repeat very shortly just a few of them. One important one was time management, because we definitely want to make sure that everyone that comes to the conference has the time to share their research, and people are always they're also counting on you to just take the time that the schedules for you. So rehearsal is very important. The second tip that I gave was also that it's very important to make sure that you upfront already tell the people why you want them to be hooked up to your presentation, what it is, which information you're going to give to them. So this means that when you start your presentation, it's very helpful to already tell them, just like you would be a news show or a film. You're gonna watch this because in the end of this, you'll know the answer to this, this, and this, and this. Or if you pay close attention, you will find out what uh, what it is that I solved. So try to engage your audience. Make sure that people get the feeling that they're not there because you needed listeners. They're there because you have something important to tell them. We were just talking about how to give form to your presentation, and I said to you not to use too many text on the slides. Text will do only one thing: it will make people read. So as long as they're going to read, they're not listening to your story. So I know obviously that because you're all doing your research very thoroughly, that there is going to be some data that needs to be presented. But then think of a nice attractive form you could use. So graphics are always a plus one. If you use a graphic, if you use pictures, these are the things that people can relate to and people understand. In the end, it's still you that has to do it. You have to present your story. So if you're not a storyteller per se in yourself, my tip would definitely be to make sure that the coming weeks you inspire yourself a couple of times by looking maybe at some TED Talks. If you're watching this inside the Google Plus environment, I hope that you can see the group chat um, uh, uh, column on the side. I've put a link to a YouTube to a TEDx video there. There are many examples of storytellers, and obviously, we don't expect you to become a TEDx speaker in a couple of weeks, but we do hope that you get yourself inspired by how people tell stories. And telling a story means thinking about where's your beginning and where's your end. How are you going to make sure that it's a great story to listen to? And even if you really think it through, your story would be a story that even me, who has no link to your research, maybe just as someone in the audience, will be able to share what you've told to me to my family at home just a little bit. I would be able, if it's a good story, to reproduce some of the information that's been given to me. To make sure this has happened, it's very important to make sure that your information connects to me as the audience. Obviously, we understand that your trade is not to be a presenter or a speaker. Still, we hope that these few tips will make you just think a little bit differently about your presentation. Why not start with the recommendation that you're going to do in the end? Why not start with the answers on questions that you're going to present? Why not ask people one or two questions during your presentation to make sure that they still are connected to your story and understand what it is about? And why not try to form your presentation without even one slide with text? I know, maybe this is going a little bit too crazy. I just hope that you take the time to think it through, so that your contribution to the conference will not only be great for our conference participants, but especially for you, that it is a very great experience for you to be a presenter at the SCI conferences this year. So there's only one little point that we want to share with you. If you're using photos and text, please make sure that the photos and text is appropriate. Maybe you want to have it checked by someone in um, your neighborhood if you're not a native English speaker, because obviously we don't want you to be embarrassed if there may be some typos in your text. And well, about the photos, we're sure that you already are good informed about which photos you can use and which you cannot use. Just make sure that the quality of the photos is also good, because when you start using photos, which is really a plus one for your presentation and your audience, um, there is something that could be disturbing when the quality is so poor. And obviously, there's a lot of free stock photos available on the internet. I'm sure if you just Google a little bit, you can find photos to fit your story. So during this hangout, for us, it's also a tryout. We've been at the max of 14 presenters. We will be scheduling another hangout, and hopefully you will join us again, or you will be able to also tell the story that we're doing these hangouts to make sure that at the Sci Conference 2016 we can plus the quality even more. Obviously, you're maybe joining us at one of the conferences, but there are three Sci conferences this year, two in London and one in San Francisco. So please also check out the website and make sure that maybe these other conferences are also relevant for you, and we would love to see you there. So just a roundup of the presentation tips that I've been given before we'll close and go to maybe a Q&A online if you found the chat function. I will be happy to answer your questions. So as a roundup, I've been talking about the time of presentation. Please make sure that you stay including the time of your presentation. It's always between 15 and 17 minutes, but this includes a Q&A. So if a Q&A is important for you, then please make sure that we won't go and lose a lot of time. Rehearse your presentation. Make sure that it's fit for the time and that you know what you need to tell. Also look at what is not necessary to share with the audience, because some information might not be so important as it feels for you. The audience obviously is very curious to get to know your research. Why not also give them the conclusions of your research up front? So start with what it is that you found out, or start by explaining which problem you have solved, and then take them. The example I gave was like a television show. After this break, if you keep watching, this and this is what you will have learned. So then we talked about the audience engagement. You could do this by asking them some questions. And please think that people are not always comfortable about raising their hand, but if you ask a direct answer of them, it could probably work. Then obviously, don't use too many text. Try as much pictures as possible. Also think about how you're telling your story, and we also talked about the use of appropriate photos and text, because the quality of, if you're going to start using photos, we don't want the photos to be very poor of quality. It will disgrade your presentation. So I've counted a couple of 15 viewers, 18 viewers at the max now, and I put a link in the text. If you'd like, we could try to find some more links of good examples of storytellers. Obviously, I wish you all a very successful experience. I know for a lot of you it's going to be exciting, because maybe you're not a everyday speaker. It may be even your first time when presenting. So we would really hope that you feel comfortable. As the moderator of the conference, I will be also there next to the entire team of the Sci Conference to make sure that everything is there in the optimal condition for you to do your presentation. So I hope that you see the question area, and please try out if you'd like to ask a question if you have one. If not, and you're leaving us at this moment, I want to thank you for taking the time to come to the Sci Hangout. We're going to do some more. We're trying out, we're experimenting. So hopefully you'll join us for the next one. If you have any tips for us that we can also upgrade this, something that you've missed, please let us know via email, because we're always thinking about how to get the conferences also to an even next and higher level. Also on the website, you can see the other conferences, the 2 conferences in London and one in San Francisco this year. And obviously, if these are relevant for you, we would really much like to see you there. So I'll just go to the question field now. If you have questions, please ask them. Don't be shy. We'll answer them because we're here for you. We want to make sure that you have a great experience. And obviously, there's also a good possibility that the most viewers are looking via YouTube directly, and there will not be a chat screen on YouTube. So we're just gonna check out. Maybe people put some questions in the comments. Just go to another screen here. I haven't seen any questions yet, which either means that my presentation was was filled with all the information you need, or it's not working for you guys to put in questions. So we're definitely gonna look at that. Still no questions here. So I think this is the max that we can do. Okay, so just as a test, then would any of the viewers like to try to type in a question or just your name at the chat so that I can see if the question will come in? Because obviously, if you do have questions and just by technicality we are not able to answer them at this moment, we're gonna make sure that we can do that at a later time. So if anyone would feel so free to type in their name in the chat fenster in the chat bar just below, that would be great. It should be somewhere at the side. And because it stays so quiet in the chat room, my feeling is that probably it's not working for you guys. No, already I get a message from someone that says that they can't see the chat box. So I'm sorry for that, because I really hope that this chat box function of the Google Hangout would just work perfectly to make sure that there are questions. Let me see questions. I see some questions now. I hope these viewers are still here. I see Fernando. I see Kavinga. Kavinga has a question. Does the 15 minutes include setting up time as well? Good question. Thank you. I'm glad. So the chat box is working for some people. Also, Greg Henderson asked this question. How long are the presentations this year? So the presentations are between 15 and 17 minutes. And setup time, the installation of your laptop or anything like that, if it's that's not included. So the time will start as soon as you can start. Obviously, we wouldn't prefer people taking 10 minutes for a technical difficult setup. If your presentation involves a certain time of technique, maybe because you're presenting this technique, obviously it would be great if you contact the organization team, Raul and Sapriya and the other people of the site team. We'd be more than happy to hear from you, because if it's very a plus for the conference, we want to try to make this possible. But most of you will just be presenting with a laptop and a beamer, and we have all types of connectabilities available there. If you're using a certain type of laptop, you will notice, obviously, then it is preferable to also make sure that you bring your own connection device. So if it's a specific plug, I'm not sure that all plugs will be there and will be available at the same time. So it's make sure that you're set up to do your presentation under any circumstances. So Kavinga Abby Wardena. I'm practicing already on the beautiful names that I'm gonna get to know during the conferences this year. Yes, I can see the questions. I'll just try to make sure that you notice by clicking the select box and the star box. Starbucks. That's a weird question. I'm clicking a star here, so to make sure that you understand that I can see the questions, and hopefully I've answered them right now. We're still at 12 viewers, which I think for this first experiment, I'm very happy, and I've seen 18 as well. So I also hope that it helped. So also please feel free to give your feedback to us. What can we do better? What you like more of those hangouts? We would really like to plus on the quality of the side conferences, and also to excel on how we go to these conferences and make it a 21st century way. So if there's anything we can change, please let us know. For a couple of you, we will be meeting again because I've been hosting the side conferences also in 2014 and 2015. I'm very much looking forward to these two editions in London and one in San Francisco later this year. As you've noticed, um, there are many people that want to uh, get involved in the sci conference. So this is also why the presentation time is so short. We also got a question on YouTube. How many slides do I prepare during the conference? And my tip would be approximately 10 to 12 slides would be best. If you count that usually the time to talk through a slide would be minimum 1 minute, then 10 to 12 is the max you have. Obviously, you would use one slide only, maybe for your name or your credentials. But another smart thing you could do is just if you want people to connect to you and to make sure that they know where to reach you, in the lower bar of your presentation, you could just put your email there, or your Twitter handle, or maybe your LinkedIn handle, to make sure that people have it in view. As soon as they get their device to make notes, they can just write it out. 10 to 12 slides. Another tip that I could give you is there's great software online to share your slides. SlideShare, for instance, is one. So if you're smart, you could already put your slide deck up there and make the link available as soon as you've given your presentation. So people will be able to look at it in their own tempo, real easy. So any more questions that we can answer, please feel free to ask. I'll also look at if we can get more questions from YouTube. And we're still at 11. One more question at YouTube. Is there a scheme for the presentation? And is it possible to present as a story or an extraordinary way? Well, yeah, there is a scheme. At this moment, the exact scheme is still being made. So we can't already tell you at what time slot you will be, but this will be in the coming weeks. Will be available, and obviously you can present in any way that you feel comfortable in, and in which you think that it will add to the quality of your story. So if you feel that you want to be dressed as a storyteller, or maybe if it helps, I always say it's your presentation, it's your 15 minutes. So you should do whatever feels good, but keep your audience in mind. Will they understand it? Will they get the context? So you can do it with a story or in an extraordinary way. Um, um, but please make sure that you don't lose yourself in this form, because the content is still in the lead, right? You still want people you still want to make sure that after your presentation, they will understand what it is that you've tried to communicate with them. So as long as you have for yourself clearly, okay, these are the 3 or 5 or 6 topics, 6 things that I want people to remember from my presentation, being these conclusions of my research, or being these 3 things to inspire them, as long as you keep this clear, there's a good chance that your creative way will only your creativity will only add up to how people are gonna remember your story and gonna take your story with them when they go home again from the conference. Okay, hopefully that was an answer to your question. And then again, if you just Google on presentations, I always think that TEDx, because there's so many different TED talks, and they only take like between 8 minutes, and some are a little bit longer, but 8 to 18 minutes max. There are so many great examples there of how people present even very uh, 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 very on topic content in all kinds of topics. So you can really get inspired by just go to TEDx.com and get your inspiration. Maybe even steal some great tips and presentation styles from the speakers you see there. So let me just, or last, check the chat box. No more questions in chat box at this moment, but thank you for participating and trying this out with us. As I said, we're also trying out how to get in touch more with these hundreds of researchers all over the world that come to present at SCI. And I will check if there are more questions on YouTube. We have like an editor. One of our team is actually watching on YouTube, checking if people are putting questions in the comment, and I'm checking out the chat box to make sure that we reach you. And maybe I'm repeating some bits, but also that's because I see people that join us and leave the viewing as we go. So I just want to make sure that we give people more information. Okay, someone has a question on YouTube. Do we have to submit presentation slides on before the conference? No, you just bring your slides on a USB, because you may want to be changing it at the last minute. So you just bring it on a USB, and then again, I can't emphasize enough that be sure, better to be sure than sorry, that you will save them in different formats. Maybe think of what could happen if the slide it isn't in 3 to 4, but it's just in 6 to 9. Just make sure that your presentation can work under any circumstances, because you don't want it to look blurry, especially if you've put so much time into it. Another question: during the presentation, can I use my own laptop, or will I have to use the conference laptop? Both is possible. So if you want to just make sure that your slides work, and that you don't want to be depending on our materials, then my answer would be you can bring your own laptop, just to be sure. Okay, so we're coming to a conclusion. There will be another hangout scheduled. We will send out an invitation, and hopefully you will join us maybe again. And otherwise, we want to thank you for watching, and we will see you at one of the conferences. Go to the website to check out if you've registered for all of them. This is obviously the best tip I can give you, because we would really like the conference to be full and to have all of you there. So thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Hopefully this was helpful, and please give us your feedback via email. We'd love to hear from you. Bye-bye.